It's a long story, but yeah. It starts out with my husband was leasing a Kia, and he really liked it. He wanted to pay off the Kia before the lease was over, so he overpaid the Kia. He died a year ago, and he had overpaid the Kia at that point by more than $6,000. A month after he died, I went through some terrible medical things. I was not at home. He died July 10th. I was not at home from August 10th until December 17th. When I got home in December, it was still a few months before I was able to drive. And then I realized I just didn't like it. And that's when I realized how much he had overpaid the Kia by. There was still, at this point, well over $5,000 that he had overpaid. I contacted them to see how I could get the money refunded. They said send a letter to this fax number. I did, never heard back from them. Some weeks later, I decided to follow up with a phone call. Now they're refusing to talk to me, first of all, because I wasn't on the lease. I had to get a copy of the death certificate, and took me a while to get all of that straightened out. And then I said, so when do I get the money back? Well, you have to turn the car back first. Why should I turn the car back? Because you have no right to this $5,000. Because it was overpaid on the lease. Even at the very minimum, the lease was, if I kept it without making a payment for the next year, they still would have owed me $2,000. Of course, they would not tell me the numbers at this point. I knew them because I could log into my husband's account, but they would not tell me these numbers. Finally, they told me that they weren't going to return the money until I brought the car back. There was nothing I could do about it, and that was on a Friday. The very next day, Saturday, was the first Saturday in July, I got a check in the mail from them. I couldn't believe it after Friday, them telling me I wouldn't get this check. So Saturday, I get the check. I went and put it in the bank. Also on Friday, after I spent all this time arguing with them, I'd got a phone call back saying, call this number, call me at this number so we can talk more. I just spent an hour talking with them. I was totally exhausted because I still have residual medical problems. You can imagine, you don't spend 5 months in hospitals without being sick for a long time afterwards. I tried calling back. Nobody answered. Went to the voicemail. This is real typical for them to just go to the voicemail and do nothing about it. I waited an hour. I called back again. Went to voicemail again. And then Saturday when I got the check, I go, oh, they must have been calling me to tell me that this check was on the way after all. Put it in the bank. I waited until the 5th of July, so it had time to clear in case there was a problem. It cleared the bank. My bank said I had the money in the account. I spent some money. Okay, it was $5,000. I wanted to spend a little on myself. I put $3,000 in my savings account for a down payment on a new car. The next day, I go to use my bank card. I'm told that the bank card won't work. There's something wrong. I check with the bank, and I was $3,000 overdrawn at this point. And the bank couldn't even tell me what was going on. Finally, the next day, I found out that it was because Kia had put a stop payment on that check without telling me. When I finally got hold of this woman that had done it, she said, oh, we weren't supposed to send you that check out. If you had called me back, I would have told you that we're putting a stop payment on it. I did try calling you back. And she says, well, I'm sorry we didn't get hold of you. You should have known that we would put a stop payment on it. For the next 2 weeks, I had no cash. None. I was able to go into my 401k and get enough money to at least get me up to zero. I got my disability check, and that got me a little above zero. But for 2 weeks, I had no cash. I was unable to, buy groceries or anything. Finally, this woman, her name was Tanya, she said, well, if you return the car on Wednesday, we will reissue the check. We will send it FedEx overnight. You will have it by Friday. Fine. So Wednesday, I took the car back to the nearest Kia dealership, called her, and she says, well, I don't know that you've returned it back because I can't talk to the Kia dealership. I said, well, I tried calling you from there, and you didn't answer your phone, which, again, is so typical of them. And finally, she called them and said, okay, it's been returned. We will get you the money back overnight. Took 10 days. I did finally get the money back yesterday, but it took 10 days. During that 10 days, I called them. She had told me there would be another man named George, who would be taking care of the check. Every time I called George, it just went to the voicemail. He never returned my calls. His voicemail says, I will return the calls at my earliest convenience. Well, obviously, he never had a convenience because for 10 days. Finally, I got so mad at them, I said, I am going to call you every 15 minutes today. And for the next 3 hours, I called them every 15 minutes. Even though nobody talked to me, I felt good about jamming up their voicemail. You get your pleasures where you can. Finally, I got hold of someone, and again, it's so hard to get hold of Kia because you have to call their 800 number. You have to give all of this information to them every time you call in. They will not transfer you to the people who you need to talk to because all they can do is email the people and tell the people to call you. It's just the way they do there. They could not talk directly to anyone that had the money in their accounting department because they can only email the accounting department. No, there's nobody you can talk to. Yes, you can talk to a supervisor, but no, the supervisor's not going to do anything. You just have to wait till someone calls you back. It's just a terrible way for them to work. Finally, on Friday I called, and this is 10 days after I've turned the car in. I called, I said, I've been waiting for this money. I need it in order to buy another car, which I will not buy a Kia. Kia has actually screwed me over twice in the past. On Friday, they said, well, the check hasn't even been cut yet. It won't be cut until Monday, so there's nothing we can do about it. And that's where they left me. They said they'd call me back when it's cut, and they would give me the FedEx number. 10 o'clock Monday morning, the check showed up. So I immediately went down to Bank of America, where Kia banks, and cashed the check. I got the check. I got my new car. If they choose to put another stop payment on it, there's nothing anybody can do about it because I've got the money, and it's not through my bank.